Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson is an ordained Centers for Spiritual Living minister serving the Center for Spiritual Living Greater Baltimore community as our spiritual director. As a lifelong learner with a passion for self development, personal transformation, transmutation, and transfiguration, he has frequently been referred to as a Renaissance man and visionary New Thought leader who makes complex metaphysical concepts readily understandable and applicable. Is to live, move, and be an active member of society who serves to educate, elucidate, and emancipate people and communities to awaken and empower themselves. ACTIVE is an acronym that stands for authentic, compassionate, transparent, inspired, vibrant, and empowered. And he continues to live his bliss as a teacher, minister, author, workshop and seminar facilitator, visual artist, ASL interpreter, and ASL performing artist, mentor, father, grandfather, and more. I give you Reverend Dr. Ray.
Hello and good morning. Yes, as we have found out today, as pretty much every day at CSO Greater Baltimore, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Yeah, you never know what kind of comedy and stuff is going to happen backstage, on stage. Whew, whew. Okay, so let us dive on in. So, welcome to December. Has been an adventurous, very adventurous year. Very adventurous. And the theme for the month, if you are just now tuning in, the theme for the month is this idea, this concept, this energy around community. And today we are talking about longing to belong, as you have heard from our master practitioner of distinction today, if you tuned in earlier. And if you didn't, I suggest you go back and rewatch the recording to meditate with Eugene. This idea of what does it mean to have a longing to belong? And what we're going to do is we're going to completely shift and eradicate the idea of longing, hungering for, having a thirst and a deep I don't have but I want. Yeah, we're not going there because one of the synonyms for longing as a noun is to have great zeal, right? And as an adjective, it's avid. So, avid is having or showing this keen interest in or enthusiasm for something. So, we have an enthusiasm, an interest in this thing called community. We're in community and we have an interest in it. We are invested in it. Zeal, having great energy, great enthusiasm related to an objective, a cause, a goal, a desire. Do we not have great energy and enthusiasm related to this thing called community? I think so. So, this idea of longing is being deeply steeped in the energy of what it means to belong, not simply to fit in, not simply to fit in. Because oftentimes We are so conditioned and focused on what it means to fit in rather than belong. Now, let's be clear. Fitting in ultimately makes us invisible. Fitting in means we have to conform. Fitting in is when deaf students are mainstreamed and forced to read lips and forced to speak and be oral rather than their native language of American Sign Language. Fitting in is forcing colonization on indigenous children and forcing them to give up their indigenous names for colonized, westernized names. That's fitting in. I am making you give up who you are. I am making you invisible. I am making you fit in. And yet, we are understanding that this thing that we call God is incarnating itself in, through, and as each of us. So we are not meant to fit in. We are not meant to be invisible. As our divine and spiritual magnificence calls, we are meant to show up exactly for who and what we are. Breathe. Because this calls for a completely different level of what it means to be unapologetic, what it means to be audacious, what it means to, as Eugene said in the spiritual practice, what it means to practice being in community. Being in community doesn't mean I fade into the background and let other people do things rather than showing up to do what is mine to do. Now, it does not mean I need to do everything, but it does mean I have a part to play. Have you ever watched a television show or a movie and you see the main characters? You see Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. You see Tom Cruise and you see a couple other named actors and they're walking down the street. And it's a busy street. You do realize that all those other people on the busy street ain't just regular people walking around on a busy street. They're called extras and they serve a purpose. Whether they have a speaking part or not, every person, every car, every bicycle, every cup of coffee you see, all of it serves a purpose to further the narrative of the TV show or the movie. There are specific people who have the job of setting the stage, setting the scene, wardrobe and costume design, and all of it serves a purpose to further the narrative. That means you have a purpose to serve, to further the narrative of what it means to be in community. Breathe. Thomas More says, soul yearns for attachment, for variety in personality, for intimacy and particularity. So it is these qualities in community that the soul seeks out. And not like-mindedness and uniformity. The soul does not want same old, same old. The soul does not want the business as usual. The soul wants variety, diversity. The soul wants. I just watched a video recently of a young boy in school, middle school, who has a vision experience where he's not able to see colors at all. And the teacher and the classmates and other parents and whatnot pitched in to purchase these new glasses for him that gives him the ability to see color. And he swaps out his glasses for these other glasses and he sees color for the first time. And he is so overcome with emotion that he breaks into tears. He sees the various ways that life shows up as all these shades and tints of red and green and blue. And he was overcome with emotion. The soul yearns for recognizing all of the ways that God shows up. The soul yearns, the soul wants to see divinity and beauty everywhere, right? Like Sky does not sing a song where it's G, 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 because that's not a song. Now, Sky is a master at music, so Sky could make a song, but somewhere there's going to have to be a change in the notes for there to actually be this expansive way of G, A, G, E, for there to now be the expression of music. That's why there are various keys on the piano to give various octaves and notes and chords. The soul yearns for the recognition of all of the ways that God, source, spirit, creativity shows up. And all of it belongs. All of the keys belong. All of the strings belong. All of the notes and instruments, all of them belong. Every single one of us belongs in community. Now, how do I know that? Because you're here. You are an individualized expression of the one. Now, let's note there is the one, God, source, spirit, that is incarnating and showing up as the many. And we return this as above, so below, as within, so without, in the microcosm and macrocosm. We demonstrate this by saying, and then the many come together in the one called community. The one shows up as the many show up as the one. We are a direct reflection of source and spirit. And when we come together in one community, one ohana, one tribe, one group of people, and we are able to identify and recognize the gloriousness of every individual member of the one, then we are able to capitalize on, we are able to magnify, we are able to truly shine brighter and serve the world, because we are given the gift of how I show up. I am honored and recognized, which gives me the strength and the capacity to show up even more. You know, when you nurture a family member and they feel empowered, then they tend to show up more as themselves, more loving, more caring, more supportive. This happens in community. Family is simply community that is joined by a certain level of biology, a certain level of DNA. A tribe, Wakanda forever, is community. It is family brought together by a common lineage, a common legacy. What is the thing about this community? And not just CSL Greater Baltimore, but the Baltimore community, the Maryland community, the East Coast, the Center for Spiritual Living, the New Thought. Like, we could go on and on and on till we get back to the thing that started it all, God. What does it mean to be included in? What does it mean to belong? What does it mean to have zeal, great energy for, and enthusiasm for, and how it's related to the objective of being God in expression, practicing the presence, practicing principle, to have zeal and be an avid practitioner of community and friendship, being connected. Oneness is not sameness. You see, colonization wants sameness. It wants each little child to be an automaton, a factory worker. So the educational system is set up in a way to teach children to be great little factory workers on an assembly line where every person is we are not here to be that, though. Unity is not uniformity. Holmes says, but unity does not mean uniformity. Unity means a oneness of purpose. Unity means what is best and safe for the majority without losing sight of each individual member of that majority and each location in it. Now, I want us to pause for a moment and be very clear. Unity means what is best and safe for the majority, but are we clear who that majority is? Are we clear who that majority is? Because, see, it's easy to fall down the rabbit hole of and bypass and malpractice spiritual principle, because this is a demonstration of unity. They are unified in their purpose. And yet, and yet, and yet, when we go back to this, and it's a Reverend Ray remix, what is best and safe for the majority? Pause, breathe, and remix. But unity does not mean uniformity. Unity means a oneness of purpose in alignment with life-affirming conditions and experiences for all. Unity means what is best and safe and life-affirming for all, the majority and the minority, without losing sight of each individual member of the planet and their inherent divine and human worth. Breathe. Because, see, we have to get real clear on what our spiritual practice is. Because there are a lot of folks, even within unity, who claim this concept of unity and oneness. And yet, in conversation with them, I find that they are racist and sexist and homophobic. So what kind of unity are they actually practicing? Certainly not this life-affirming kind. So if we are going to truly practice the presence calls us to show up in life-affirming ways, to show up in ways that brings forth the divine and the human worth of all. And it means denouncing that which is life-denying. It means denouncing that which is not life-affirming. So we have to get real clear on what it means to be in community, what it means to come from and be in an energy of you are welcome here. Now, what does it mean to be welcome? Because we use the word in a variety of ways, but how often do we actually sit down and say welcome? We use you're welcome as a response to someone says, thank you, you're welcome. Well, what does that mean? You are acknowledging thanks in a polite way. You are welcome. Well, okay, I got you. Well, but what does it mean when you say welcome back? Welcome back to service. Welcome back home. Welcome back. As you greet or receive someone in a cordial or hospitable manner. Welcome back. You are welcome. You are welcome here. Do you know that welcome is both, or all three actually? It's a noun, it's a verb, and it's an adjective. Used to greet someone in a glad or friendly way. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Greater Baltimore community. You are gladly received. Visitors with disabilities are always welcome. You are allowed or invited to do a specific thing. Everyone is welcome to join the CSL Greater Baltimore Lunch Bunch festivities. Very pleasing because much needed or desired. After service, the CSL Greater Baltimore Cafe serves a welcoming pot of coffee with love. And Sue probably mixes a little bit of mud with it. Sue knows what I'm talking about. Some of y'all might know, but a little bit of coffee, a little bit of mud. Ooh, that's delicious. Welcome shows up in a great variety of ways. So if we are going to talk about what it means to be welcome, to belong, then how often are we deeply steeped in what it means to be welcome here, welcome there, saying you're welcome? See, we are surrounded by this energy of what it means to be a welcomed part of life, what it means to welcome the breath, what it means to welcome the practice, to welcome the meditation, to welcome prayer. I greet the practitioner on duty today. I greet the person, and I am open and welcoming to receive in the same way that I receive the pot of coffee. I receive their words of truth. I receive the prayer. I receive, and I'm grateful. Breathe. This idea of being welcoming is also being very clear of what it means to belong. Because, see, you can belong, but not be included. I used to be involved in a lot of churches in my Christian days, and many of them had interpreters, but no deaf people. And it's because they did not include deaf culture into the service. They just had people up there signing. It was not a deaf friendly, it was not a deaf welcoming environment. They didn't invite deaf people to service. They didn't reach out to the deaf community. They didn't teach American Sign Language to the congregation. There was none of that stuff. It was a signing ministry. If you want people to truly be a part of community, then it means making sure that you are including them in community, including them in your invitations, including them in your nominations, including them in ways that support and nurture the community. Time, talent, treasure, include them all from every member. That's how we truly belong. That's what it means to truly be welcomed and welcoming. We must be inclusive. But are we really inclusive? Because if we're not including whoever the us is, then we're not really inclusive. So if you look around and say, in the greater Baltimore region, and this is specifically for CSL Greater Baltimore, look around the region and identify various ethnicities, various ways that people show up. What is the population of wheelchair folks versus blindness versus deafness versus ethnicities, languages, all of the diversity in the greater Baltimore area? And how much of that is or is not represented in the greater Baltimore community? And then ask, is are we a representation in the microcosm? Do we represent the macrocosm? And if so, bravo. If not, are there ways that we can include and invite more of us into the mix? Because once again, inclusion means having equity and justice, having representation, having all of the diverse ways that God is showing up. Because it's one thing to be, because there are several of these within CSL, all white communities that talk about inclusion, being inclusive, diverse, but they're not in the way that they're saying. Now, we are diverse in age. Do you have young and old? Yes, and everything in between. Socioeconomics, yes, and everything in between. So there's always some form of diversity. But the idea is, what is the diversity that you desire to have reflected in your community? Who needs to be included? Are there LGBTQ people on the board, in the prac corps, in hospitality? Is there a youth ministry? Are the teens involved in any of the decision making regarding camps and retreats, etc.? It's all of this. Are there various activities for all of these individual representations of what it means to be in community? Ernest Holmes says, what would happen if we could convert the energy of fear to faith? In other words, because it's all faith, faith that is life affirming, faith that is life denying, that's fear. If we could convert the energy of the life denying faith, fear, the energy of doubt and uncertainty into a feeling of belonging to the universe and being safe within it? Would not the original artist itself go forth into new creations in us, through us, and as us? Is there something that we are afraid of regarding community? Are we afraid to contribute? Are we afraid to show up? Are we afraid to serve? Are we afraid to be seen? Are we afraid? Do we doubt? Do we doubt one another? Do we doubt support? Are we uncertain about what it means to be in community? Do we doubt the practice? If so, that is our very invitation to figure out what that means, to figure out what's holding us back regarding building and showing up as a strong demonstration of community. And then shift into a practice that demonstrates what it means to be the beloved community. As King says, our goal is to create a beloved community. And this will require a qualitative change in our souls, as well as a quantitative change in our lives. What does that mean for us in community? Bell Hooks says, beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by its affirmation, by each of us claiming the identities and cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world. It is celebrating. Dr. Jim Lockhart says the beloved community unfolds as us. And it unfolds as us because representation matters. Having all of us at the table to such a degree that we don't even need the table, because the table can only seat a certain number. So remove the table and simply be present in the space, in a space that is continually growing and enlarging and growing and enlarging, growing and enlarging, so that all of the possible ways that we show up as spirit, incarnating itself, are represented. Because if we do not do this consciously, if we do not practice this consciously, then the lack of representation, which is hatred and fear, will continue to run rampant throughout all systems. All systems. So we either consciously show up as, or the system that is already in place in the collective consciousness will continue business as usual. Racism, anti-Semitism will continue as usual. Sexism and homophobia will continue as usual. So the choice is, what kind of community are we choosing to create? Kind of community are we choosing to be a part of? When we come into community, we are recognizing the soul's call to commune with others in actualizing more of our potential to love and to be of deep service to creation. Are we communing with one another? Are we consciously actualizing our potential individually and collectively in deep service to creation, to spirit? Now, my invitation is, in order to do that, stop saying things like, I don't see color. I invite us as part of those who understand what God is. God shows up as all of these shades and colors. And to say, I don't see color, says, I don't see God. Well, is that what it means to be in spiritual community? Or does being in spiritual community say, I see all of the shades of God and I honor them? I see all of the ways that God shows up as various languages and ethnicities and foods. I see it all and I recognize it. and I appreciate it and I honor it because it is how God is showing itself to me in this moment. And I am willing to learn about people I never met. I'm willing to learn about languages I may never speak. I am willing to learn about religions that I may never practice, but I honor others who practice them. As long as they are life affirming, as long as they are life enhancing, as long as they are demonstrations of principle and the presence of the infinite oneness of love, they're causing no harm, then yes, see it all, recognize it all, embrace it all, honor it. That's what we're here to do in community. Grace Lee Boggs, we need to discern who we are and expand on our humanness and sacredness. That's how we change the world. Pause. Discern who and what we are and expand our humanness and sacredness. That's how we change the world, which happens because we will be. We are the change. By discerning who we are, what we are, how we show up, expanding on our humanness and our sacredness. So this is your invitation. You are cordially invited. You are cordially invited. Will you accept the invitation? Because you are invited to be in community. You are invited to build together. You are invited to love together, to cry together, and to heal together. Will you accept the invitation? Because sometimes there are going to be things at the party you're invited to. I don't like those hors d'oeuvres, but I'm showing up at the party anyway because my presence is important. There are going to be people that you may not be best friends with in a community. There may be people you don't necessarily like for a variety of reasons. They trigger you and push your buttons. So what? There are clothes that you don't necessarily like. I don't like showing up to work and I have to wear a suit. But it's the uniform of the job. Well, yeah, that's true. You wear it till you get a different job. Community means working together through differences. Building a bridge involves getting dirty. Building a community involves getting dirty. Building together, loving together, crying together, healing together involves discomfort, divine discontent, challenging conversations. But will you accept the invitation to move through the discomfort, to build anyway? Peter Block says, if the essence of community is to create structures for belonging, then we are constantly inviting people who are strangers to us and one another into the circle. We are constantly inviting others into the circle. As Edwin Markham says in the poem Outwitted, he drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had wit to win. We drew a circle and took him in. Are you willing to draw a circle so encompassing that no one is shut out? Even the racist is not shut out. They too are God. And the reason they are racist is because they have bought into a non-life affirming consciousness and paradigm. They are invited to heal and shift that paradigm. But they're not going to do it from the outside of the circle. Bring them in, challenge them, Bring them in, exercise them, bring them in, and encourage them to practice what we practice: forgiveness, releasing of shame and judgment and guilt. Include them in so that they may heal. Social fabric is created one room at a time. One room at a time. To which I say, society, culture, community, a world that works for all is created one room at a time. And it's in those rooms. It happens as a result, is created in those rooms. And it happens as a result of us being engaging one life affirming thought, word, feeling, deed, and one divine human interaction at a time within those rooms. Each of us, as a divine incarnation, must be a thread in the divine tapestry. We must be a thread in the divine tapestry because it's all there is. Are we showing up as that? Are we showing up in such a way that we are weaving the beloved community one thread at a time, one conversation at a time, one conflict at a time, one challenging conversation at a time, one circle drawn at a time, one at a time, based upon how we are choosing to show up? Are we doing that work? This week's practice: journal and converse. When in your life did you feel you most belonged? When did you feel that you didn't belong? And what factored into both of these? What were the emotions related to them? What were the thoughts related to them? What were the specific conditions that made one versus the other? Grace Lee Boggs says, you cannot change any society unless you take responsibility for it. Unless you see yourself as belonging to it and responsible for changing it. What do you think she means by that? What is she inviting us within Centers for Spiritual Living? What is she inviting us within New Thought? What is she inviting us? You cannot change any society unless you take responsibility for it. What are we being invited to take responsibility for? Unless you see yourself as belonging to it, that you are responsible for having some part to play in the changing of it. Breathe. Lastly, have a conversation with two people. What do you think we could do to increase the sense of belonging in this community? What role could you play in helping to make that happen? And to what degree does diversity and inclusion and representation influence and impact this community? Breathe. This week's affirmation, our declaration, should you feel aligned to it, I'll say it first, and then if it resonates with you, then declare it with me on the second go round. Wherever I go, I belong and I am included. Sidebar. Why is that so? Didn't Eugene say God is all there is? So wherever you are, God is. That means you belong. You are included in the oneness that is spirit. Show up as it. Now together. Wherever I go, I belong and I am included. Wherever you go, you belong. And if you don't feel included, then I will do whatever I can and whatever I am called to do to ensure that you are included. No matter what, you deserve to know that. You deserve to belong. You deserve to feel what it feels like to be in community. Breathe. So we breathe in this moment as we end service. And as I always say, that though this thing called our Sunday service comes to an end, the manner in which we continue to be of service, God acting upon God, within God, continues, and it will forever continue. Forever. Forever. So actively participating, actively practicing in this way of showing up, being ourselves, loving ourselves, nurturing and caring for ourselves. For as we do for ourselves, we do for our community. I love myself so much so that I can love you so much, so that you can love you so much. And then you, from your cup that overflows, love everybody else up. Everybody whose path you cross from the overflow. And so we end this with laughter and love and joy and gratitude, and we take this out into the world. The law says yes, as a divine co-conspirator, always saying yes, and yes, and yes. And because it says yes, I know that this is already done. It is already now. And so together we touch and agree and say, and so it is. Amen. Breathe. Much love. See you soon.